Meteorology students, what's happening? This is Mr. Call here. We're going to be doing a lab today, a composition of the atmosphere lab, to try and prove how much of the atmosphere is actually made up of oxygen, because it's not as much as a lot of people think. Some of you already know the answer, but we're going to use this lab to actually confirm it. So if you have not already watched the demonstration video of the flaming piece of paper in the fish tank of water, then please go back and watch that. That will make this lab make a lot more sense. Let me flip it around and show you what we're dealing with here. So we're going to use this pretty basic concept. The fire in the previous video caused the oxygen to be consumed. Well, we're going to do the same thing, except on a much slower and much more controlled type of setup. This is steel wool. It's basically really thin strands of steel, which are a pain to work with. And what we're going to do is take 3 pieces of steel wool that are approximately the same mass and one that is about double that size, and we're going to let them rust. In order to rust, we have to get them wet, and when we get them wet, they'll start to rust and consume oxygen. Okay? This video is going to show you the basic setup, and then we as a class will work through the measurements and data collection another time. Okay? So here's what we got. Each setup will be identical except for how we treat the steel wool. Steel wool, ball number 1, in test tube number 1, is going to be completely dry. Okay? Let me see if my pen will get us in there. That piece of steel wool is going to be pushed down to the bottom of the test tube. Okay? That's number 1. Steel wool number 2 will be soaked in just regular old tap water H2O. I'll drop that in there now and let that begin to soak up the water. Steel wool ball number 3 will be soaked in a saltwater solution. We'll see if that has any effect on our end results. And steel wool ball number 4 is double in size, right? Double in mass, I should say. And we're going to soak that in the regular tap water as well. Now, each of these test tubes will be turned upside down, just like the beaker was in our fire demo, and placed into one of these 4 cups. And I'm going to use green water to fill those cups, or not fill them, but place a little water in there to help create a seal so air cannot easily get in and out of the test tube. Okay? That's probably enough time. I'll take out steel ball number 2, this one right here. Let it drip just a little bit. And then we'll place that this piece of steel wool into test tube number 2. Push it down to the bottom. Now that it's wet, it's prime for some rusting. Steel wool ball number 3, this is the one soaked in the sodium solution. We'll place that in the test tube number 3. Push that one down to the bottom. And then for test tube number 4, we're doing the steel wool that's soaked in regular water, tap water, but the steel wool is much larger. This one takes a little bit of finagling to get into the test tube. And we'll press this one down to the bottom of the test tube as well. Okay? Now I have taken some measurements that I will share with you for your data sheets, but all you need to be aware of is which test tube is going into which setup. Test tube number 1 will contain our control. This is going to be the test tube that has the dry steel wool in it. And when I place it upside down in the tube, none of the green water actually goes up into the tube yet. We start off with 0 millimeters or 0 centimeters of water in that tube. Okay? For cup number 2, we'll place the test tube that has the steel wool soaked in regular water upside down. Cup number 3 has the steel wool that is soaked in the sodium solution. That's this one right here. And cup number 4 has the steel wool that's soaked in regular water. But remember that the steel wool is twice the mass of the others. and we'll place that one in the cup. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. If the steel wool rusts at all, we should notice that water begins to go up into the test tube. All right? This is a much slower process. We're going to leave this for 24 hours and then revisit it on another day to check our results. Okay? The second thing we need you to know is that no green water went up into the test tube when I placed it in the cup initially. That might be kind of hard to believe. Something that you can try at home. Take a cup, right? And then wad up a bunch of Kleenex or toilet paper and stuff it in the bottom of the cup so that when you turn the cup upside down, let me dump that out. All of the paper towel and toilet paper stays stuck to the top just like that, okay? You can then take that cup and push it under water and pull it back out, and you'll notice that your paper towel or your Kleenex is still dry there. So we're operating under the assumption that water is not in the test tube yet, even though the test tube is turned upside down and submerged in the water. We're going to let it rust now. We're going to let it do its thing, and then we'll come back on another day and check to see how much of the water has actually gone up into the test tube. See you later.